hear a number of different recordings, and you will have to answer questions on what you hear. There will be time for you to read the instructions and questions, and you will have a chance to check your work. All the recordings will be played once only. The test is in 4 sections. At the end of the test, you will be given 10 minutes to transfer your answers to an answer sheet. Now turn to Section 1. Section 1.
You will hear a tour guide talking to a group of tourists who are visiting a cave in Vietnam.
First, you have some time to look at questions 1 to 5.
Good morning, everyone. Welcome to our visit to one of the most famous caves in Vietnam. As you know, this cave is famous for its wildlife, and one of the creatures you will observe in here is the small cave cockroach. They live mostly on the bird and bat droppings that are so plentiful in the caves. The guardrails along the trails are covered with these droppings, and this makes a feast for the cockroaches, so be careful where you put your hands. They will not harm you, but it can be a shock if you touch them. Once you're in one of the main caves, look out for the green centipedes. They will not be on the trail, but can often be seen on the wall close by. They feed on other insects and are fascinating to look at because of their colour and, of course, their many legs. Please do not try to pick one up, though. These centipedes have a very nasty poisonous bite. There are also deep red millipedes. These have a fully rounded shape, and they look like a streamlined elongated train with 100 or so closely packed legs extending right and left. When you get to the large high caves, you should look right up above you for the swifts and bats. The bats in this cave are mostly a type of dwarf bat, which are common in this part of the world. They will be clustered high up against the walls, maybe 100 or 200 together. They look like shadows high on the walls of the cave. They are likely to be very quiet right now, but because there are so many of them together, you will have no difficulty identifying them. They sleep all day until they all leave the cave in a massive flock on their nightly hunt for flying insects. The swifts are the creatures you can see flying around during the day, especially if they have young ones to feed. They can navigate in the darkness here and will fly outside in 1s and 2s at dusk to catch small winged insects like mosquitoes. However, they tend to return before it's pitch black outside, and they do not hunt at night. The swifts make nests, usually higher up on the ceiling of the cave.
Before you hear the rest of the conversation, you have some time to look at questions 6 to 10. Now listen and answer questions 6 to 10.
The paths tend to run around the edges of the large caves. Mostly this is because the centre is a mound of guano, the bird and bat droppings. This is also the source of the strong smell inside the caves. You may not like this smell, but the locals know its economic value. They have harvested the products of these caves for centuries. The guano is very valuable as fertilizer, and so it's collected each year, once the young birds have grown and the swifts have abandoned their nests. The guano is not the only valuable byproduct of the wildlife here. As you travel through the caves, you will notice some bamboo structures. These very flimsy-looking sets of poles that go a full 100 meters right up to the roof are what the locals climb up to gather the swift's nests. These are even more valuable than the guano, as they are the main ingredient in bird's nest soup. Before you begin, it's time for some safety instructions. As you probably know, this is a huge limestone cave that goes about 1 kilometre back into the hills, and in places it's 100 metres in height and 300 metres wide. There's no need to crawl around in here as you do in other caves, but it's dark inside, of course. That's why I insisted you bring a working light. Please check that it shines brightly and ensure that you stay together with others who have a good torch. In one of the larger areas of the cave, the roof is pierced so some sunlight will get through. It is best to turn your torches off if you can see well and save your batteries. It's a good idea to put your waterproof jacket on now. The walls may be wet, but that's not the main reason for the jacket. The bats and birds do excrete, and they're above you, so just in case. And of course, your hat or hood also keeps you safe from animal droppings. It's not advisable to use the guardrails as handholds. There are lots of droppings on those rails, and don't forget the cockroaches. You absolutely must follow the marked trails. The guardrails on either side are put there so that you cannot mistake them. We take no responsibility for your safety if you go over or under the rails into other cave areas. Keep your torches shining on the path whenever you are moving, just to be sure of your footing, and don't try to go too fast. You might trip, and you will certainly miss some of the fascinating wildlife in the cave. Now, it's time to begin the tour.
That is the end of section 1. You now have half a minute to check your answers. Section 2.
Animal life.
First, you have some time to look at questions 11 to 15. Now, listen carefully and answer questions 11 to 15.
Animals have played a major role in human society for many thousands of years, as food, to help in hunting, and to provide companionship. And their importance is reflected in our mythology. Many cultures have myths in which animals play a significant role in the creation of the earth and everything on it. For example, a snake is a major figure in the mythology of the Aboriginal people of Australia. There's a long tradition of animals appearing in literature, and nowadays in films too. Sometimes they appear as themselves, as in wild animal stories, a popular literary form in the USA in the first half of the 20th century. These stories aim to give a realistic view of animals and their lives, although the standpoint was occasionally somewhat romanticized. And many authors have written stories arguing the need to give animals greater protection, often by reducing the amount of pollution human beings create. In this literary approach, the actual physical qualities of a species are presented, but animals are often used symbolically in literature, particularly in fables. These are short stories, usually written to make a point about a moral issue, often through satire of how human beings behave. Impossible events take place. Most characters are animals that have a command of language and behave in other respects too, like human beings, while keeping their own physical shape. Fables are thought to have originated in the Middle East 2 to 3,000 years ago, and they're also found in the ancient literatures of Iran, India, and other cultures. Aesop, who lived in Greece in the 6th century BC, wrote a large number of fables that still retain their popularity, and many other writers have followed in his footsteps. In English literature, a much longer fable is George Orwell's political satire Animal Farm, published in 1945. Animal Farm is unusual in being a fable for adults. Far more often the target audience is children, and fables provide them with examples of good and bad behaviour. The Just So stories, written by the British author Rudyard Kipling in the late 1890s, are typical of the genre. As in the same author's Jungle Book, the stories contain many animal characters. The Just So stories tell of how the earth began, and of the people and animals who live on it, and they recommend certain ways of behaving. Let me give you an example. One story, How the Camel Got His Hump, is set at the time when animals were first domesticated. A dog, a horse, and an ox work for a man, but the camel, who lives alone in the middle of the desert, is lazy and refuses to work. As a result, the other 3 animals have a heavier workload. They complain to the magical creature in charge of all deserts, who tells the camel to work. The camel simply replies, "Humph." So, the magical creature punishes him by giving him a hump on his back. This holds enough food for the camel to work for 3 days without eating, to make up for the time he's missed. The moral of the story is that everyone ought to work, in order to contribute to the common good.
Before you hear the rest of the talk, you have some time to look at questions 16 to 20. Now listen and answer questions 16 to 20.
Jean Clark speaking.
Hello, Jean, it's Tom.
Hello, Tom. Nice to hear from you. I'm looking forward to your visit.
Me too. In fact, that's what I'm calling about. I've booked my flight, so I can give you my arrival time now.
Good.
I'm due to land at 15:20 on June the 7th, but I expect you'll be at work, so don't worry about meeting me.
Well, I can get to the airport a couple of hours later, so if you don't mind waiting, it won't be for very long.
OK, that's fine.
You won't want to carry your suitcase around, so you might like to put it in a locker. When you come out of the baggage claim area, you'll see a big clock just ahead of you. Turn right into Lobby East, and you'll come to a sign to the car park on your left. There are some lockers just after that passageway.
Good. I don't suppose there's much to do at the airport, but a cup of coffee would be nice.
Well, if you go from the clock into Lobby West, you'll see various shops and things on both sides. The first 2 on the left are both cafes. The second one is more popular, but I prefer the coffee house. The staff are much friendlier, and they serve better coffee. It's the first one you come to.
OK, I've made a note of that.
Oh, but you'll need some local currency. Will you be bringing any with you?
I thought I'd draw some out when I arrive. I presume I can get some money at the airport.
Let me think. Yes, there are several cash machines close together. Imagine you're going from the clock into Lobby East, and they're immediately to the right, before the hotel.
Oh, right.
You might like to go to the exhibition space. It's only small, but there are usually some interesting paintings by local artists. It's at the end of Lobby West. You can see the entrance facing you as you walk along.
That sounds as though it's worth a visit. I'd also like to buy some CDs. Do you know if there's a store in the terminal?
Yes, there are a couple. There's one more or less opposite the exit from the baggage claim, on the corner of Lobby West.
Oh, do they stock classical CDs?
Oh, no, I don't think they do. But there's another store that does. From the clock, go along Lobby East, then turn right just after the hotel. You'll see the store. It's opposite the side of the hotel. It's very small, but there's a reasonable selection.
That's great. I'm sure I can fill in the time before you arrive. Where shall we meet?
There's a quiet lounge, no mobile phones allowed. Would that be okay with you?
Perfect.
It's beside the main exit in Lobby East. I'll see you in there about 5:30 on the 7th.
Great. Look forward to seeing you, Jean. Bye.
Bye, Tom.
That is the end of section 2. You now have half a minute to check your answers. Section 3. You will hear a man phoning to inquire about hotel information. First, you have some time to look at questions 21 to 24. Now, listen carefully and answer questions 21 to 24.
Good afternoon. You're through to reception at the Island Hotel in Crete. How may I help you today?
Yes, hello there. I'm hoping to book a double room for my wife and myself for about 2 weeks, from the 25th of April of this year. Firstly, could you tell me whether it's particularly hot during this time?
Yes, of course, sir. During late April and early May, the daytime temperature shouldn't exceed 19 degrees Celsius. But the weather has been rather erratic and difficult to predict in recent years, so I am unable to say for certain.
Okay, that sounds good. My wife doesn't like going outside when it's very hot. I haven't booked flights yet, but I must say that I'm unfamiliar with Crete and its transport system. Does the hotel provide an airport shuttle service?
Yes, sir. We provide a complimentary airport pickup service for all our guests. It takes about 40 minutes to get here from the airport, but it's at least 60 minutes at rush hours. And you will be provided with a fully air-conditioned shuttle bus.
Okay, excellent. In that case, do you have any rooms available for the dates I gave you?
I shall have a look on the system now for you, sir. Bear with me just a moment. Yes, sir. I can see now that we have several rooms available. Would you prefer a garden view or a sea view?
Well, ideally I would like a sea view room with a balcony. But of course that depends on the difference in price.
Not to worry, sir. All of our standard double rooms have ensuite facilities and a balcony. If you would like one of our sea view rooms, there is a premium of €60 per night.
Okay. So could you tell me the total nightly rate for a standard double room with a sea view?
Yes, of course, sir. For the spring months, our rate is €216 per night. For 14 nights altogether, this will come to €3,024.
Perfect. I also read on your website that the hotel has gym and spa facilities. Are there any other facilities on offer?
Yes. We have a large outdoor infinity pool overlooking the ocean, with luxury sunbeds and a poolside bar. We also have 3 full-size tennis courts, where we run a popular doubles tournament, with the winner receiving 2 all-inclusive spa day vouchers.
Goodness, I shall have to brush up on my tennis skills.
Before you hear the rest of the talk, you have some time to look at questions 25 to 30. Now listen and answer questions 25 to 30.
Are there any other activities organised by the hotel that we can partake in? It's just that it's our wedding anniversary on the 30th of June, and I would like to provide my wife with a perfect romantic getaway.
I can assure you, sir, that your wife won't be disappointed. Ours is a 5-star resort, which is renowned for its luxury and beauty. In terms of activities, the hotel provides thrice-weekly entertainment. On Tuesdays, guests will take a minibus and partake in learning to cook succulent fish dishes with our Michelin-starred chef Enrique. The class will take place in a beautiful valley deep in the Cretan hills, where guests will be treated to an intimate piano performance by our in-house concert pianist Pedro. On Wednesdays, a select number of guests will be fortunate enough to explore the mountains by helicopter, before being transported to a tropical Cretan garden by shuttle bus. Finally, on Thursdays, after a fancy dinner, we provide a spectacular fireworks display, which guests can view from the comfort of a cable car.
Oh, wow! That all sounds absolutely wonderful. I shall book the room now, and then I need to look at flights so as not to become extortionate. Would you like to take my details now or later?
That is the end of section 3. You now have half a minute to check your answers. Section 4.
You will hear a talk from a member of the Conservation Society talking about green cleaning.
First, you have some time to look at questions 31 to 40. Now listen carefully and answer questions 31 to 40.
Good morning, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here as a representative of the Conservation Society to talk to you about green cleaning. In other words, about ways you can help to save the environment at the same time as saving money. I'll start with saving money, as we're all interested in that, especially students who are living on a tight budget. Probably none of you has sat down and calculated how much you spend on cleaning products each year. Everything from dishwashing detergent, window cleaners and so on, through to shampoos and conditioners for your hair, and then those disasters, products to get stains out of carpets or to rescue burnt saucepans. I can see some nods of agreement. Even if you don't spend a lot of time on housework, you'd end up spending quite a lot of money over a period of time, wouldn't you? We can save money on products and also use products which are cheap, biodegradable and harmless to the environment. These I will call green products. Unfortunately, most cleaning products on sale commercially are none of these, and many of our waterways and oceans are polluted with bleach, dioxins, phosphates and artificial colourings and perfumes. Also, think how many plastic bottles each household throws away over a year. They'll still be around in landfill when you are grandparents. So we often feel there's nothing we can do to make a difference, but we can. The actual recipes are on handouts you can take at the end of the talk. The sorts of ingredients I'm referring to are things like bicarbonate of soda, eucalyptus oil, ammonia, vinegar, lemons, pure soap. Lastly, many people find they are allergic to modern products. So for all you asthma sufferers, keep listening. Nothing in these recipes should cause you any problems. An end to itching and wheezing. So let's start with spills and stains. Soda water is wonderful as an immediate stain remover. Mop up the excess spill. Don't rub, but apply soda water immediately. It's great for tea, coffee, wine, beer and milk. As is salt or bicarbonate of soda, which will absorb the stain. Then vacuum when dry and shampoo if necessary. While we're talking about disasters, let's quickly look at some others that can be avoided. Bicarbonate of soda is wonderful for removing smells, especially in the fridge. An open box in the fridge will eliminate smells for up to 3 months. And those terrible burnt saucepans, either sprinkle with our good friend bicarb again and leave it to stand, or cover with vinegar and a layer of cooking salt. Bring it to the boil and simmer for 10 minutes, then wash when cool. Much cheaper than a new saucepan. Then there are heat rings on wooden furniture. Simply rub with a mixture of salt and olive oil, or for scratched furniture, use olive oil and vinegar. Now, let's look at general cleaning. First, the floors. If your floor covering is made of slate, cork or ceramic tiles or lino, it probably only needs a mop or a scrub with vinegar in a bucket of water. Carpets can be shampooed using a combination of pure soap, washing soda, cloudy ammonia and some boiling water. You put a small amount of this mixture onto the mark on the carpet, rub with a cloth until it lathers, and then wipe off the excess. A smelly carpet can be deodorized by sprinkling bicarbonate of soda on the surface, leaving overnight, and vacuuming off the next day. Cleaning in the kitchen, bathroom and toilet is the next section.
That is the end of section 4.
That is the end of section 4. You now have half a minute to check your answers.